Welcome, everybody, back to the entrepreneur's journey. Let's get my words right. Live. And when we say we're live, we're actually really live. Martin's got a tickle in his throat. I'm in
True.
Boise for my daughter's graduation from Boise State. So I've got my laptop on top of an Amazon box, the dining table from my Airbnb in the family room, and we are live as much as we can be. So thank you for tuning in. I'm the heart. He is the brain for sure. How you doing, Martin?
Morning. I'm doing great.
Good, good. You said something really amazing before we introduced our guest, right before we came on. And I said it was a tweetable moment, which is probably dating me. But can you say what you said again?
Well, let's see. I think we were just talking about people getting nervous about selling or talking about their own product or their own service. And what I said is that if you don't have the only people who have something valuable to talk about and sell are the ones who experience uh,
Imposters.
imposter syndrome, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they're the only ones. If you know that what you're selling is not valuable, you never doubt it.
Yeah. Well, and so check the box there. So that makes me feel better. Good morning,
Good morning.
Barb. She listened last week or 2 weeks ago as well. And then Martin, you're going to update us on anything goes here.
Yes. So I wanted to make sure that everybody knows that this is a full-on Q&A AMA. Right? You can ask us anything as we go. We're going to try to have a flow to it, and if we're talking to our guests, which we will today, we'll just try to make it fit with the flow. But if not, we'll definitely keep your questions. We'll bring them up either at the end or to the next or in the next show.
Perfect. Awesome. So just feel free to let us know. We've had some questions in between the two podcasts that we may bring up as well. But I'm super, super excited because I love our guest, Meghann Conter. Meghann with two N's, because that's how she rolls. She uses her power to connect, elevate, entertain for sure, and celebrate extraordinary women as the CEO of the Dames. She's a global incubator for the greatness of women running 6, 7, and 8-figure businesses. Meghann believes that anything can be accomplished through fearless collaboration, laughter, fun, and love, which is great. And sometimes we do have fear, right? So we do have imposter syndrome,
I've
but
heard
we
of
all
it.
help. We all help each other out. Once a burnt out, over networked CEO is now the global ultra connector for women who thrive in the space where self-worth and net worth align. I love that. And we're going to be talking a little bit more about that today. So you can learn more about Meghann at thedames.co. So let's bring in Meghann. I am so excited.
Yeah, me too, guys. As you were talking about the fact that you're in Boise and you're dealing with a scratchy throat, I'm dealing with some background that isn't so pretty, and I'm very conscious of that. So we're just going to go ahead and roll with reality today, roll with being real, which is why I'm so grateful to be on your show today, because you two exemplify that in spades. So thank you for having me on as your guest. And I'm just stoked to get real.
Awesome.
And
Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so funny as we were testing things out, Meghann. Like we were like, your background, it's good, it's fine. We're real. And then I started having microphone issues, and you're like, just take a deep breath. We're real. It's okay. And I'm like, okay, we're literally before we go live, we're pumping each other up and helping each other remember that it's okay. Realness is okay. Just bring ourselves here. Absolutely. Absolutely. No moose and all.
That's right. It looks like we have Candace with us today too. So good morning,
Yes.
Candace.
Good
I love
morning.
live guests. They're the best.
They
I
are the
love them
best.
too.
They are the best.
So Meghann,
yeah,
tell us a little bit about your journey.
Yes,
Getting here.
absolutely. It was funny, Natalie, when you read the intro, you said Meghann is an incubator for the greatness of women. And I was thinking, well, yes, and the Dames is too. But I would love to be an incubator. I'm just like a little chickie, I just gather my little chickies around with the lights and the food and yeah.
That's how I see you.
Yes, that is exactly right. I have always been a community person. I've always been somebody who collaboration and connection is innate in me ever since I was a little kid. It was funny actually years ago when I was still in corporate America. I was with some friends, like a whole diverse group of us were up in Dillon, Silverthorne, and everybody was like looking around at this room full of like 25 people, and they're like, "How did we all get here?" And then everyone looked at me, and they were like, "That one." And it's always been that way ever since I was very little. People just like I magnetize people, and then I'm like, "Oh, you need to know you and you guys," and I'm always connecting people. It's the best in the world. So
You and I are so much alike in that way. Literally, that's what happens.
yeah.
Yeah, for my world. Yeah. And I love it. It's the glue. It's the glue and pulling great people together. So,
Absolutely. And that's why, in the first, so let's see, 6 years out of college, when I was in careers that were not at all fitting for me. I mean, I started out in banking, which is about as far away from what the essence of Meghann is as you can possibly get. But I graduated right after September 11th, and my marketing degree was not wanted anywhere at that point in time. So, banking was where I started, and it was like painful every day to go to work. And then I moved into retail management, which was at least better because I was around people all the time and I was getting to connect with them. And, it was just keeping me busy and on my feet, literally. But then when I finally got into, a real corporate job, as a marketing in the marketing department of an architecture firm, I thought, oh, this is going to be great. I'm going to get to work in my field. It's going to be amazing. And oh my gosh, if there was any deflation worse than that, I don't know if it could exist, but it was just like, wah, wah, this is just as bad as the others. And I just kept finding myself feeling at that time, this was like end of 2008. I kept thinking to myself for years, like, if my professional life, 40 hours plus a week, has to be like this for the rest of my life, I don't know how long I'm going to make it on this planet, to be honest.
and what were the things that like this for
Yeah.
you? What was the like this for you?
Yeah. So every idea having to be scrutinized by a bunch of other people who don't understand marketing and who don't understand how it works and what kind of consistency you have to have. And, this is 2008. So this is like the beginning stages of social media.
Yeah.
And so I was seeing these things and at the forefront, and I'm like, we need to get on social media. We need to get a MySpace account. We need to get a Facebook account. We need to get a Friendster account, with like all these things. And my bosses, who were like, old white men, were just like, no, we're not going to do that. We're a high-end architecture firm, blah, blah, blah. So it was like the ideas not being honored, the ideas taking way too long to come to fruition. And just the level of like, I have so much capacity for getting things done and so many ideas that the amount of follows on MySpace, that the amount of things that we could actually complete to me were just abysmal, at best. And so I found myself continuing to binge drink like I had in college all the way through my early years in work because I was trying to drown my misery. The only thing that was good was my coworkers. Like I always had fabulous rapport with them, relationships with them. They were like my second family. And so, that was where I felt like, okay, I can handle this. But then 2008 was when the housing market started to crash and the architecture industry and construction was hit early. So a whole bunch of us were laid off. And so I found myself looking for a job in end of 2008, which, as you can imagine, was not an easy period of time to look for a job.
Well, it's kind of interesting. We started in the business in late 2007. The only thing about that is your numbers can only go up.
Yeah. Yep, exactly. So I had already made it through, being being professionally unsatisfied. And so now I'm looking for another job. And I'm a believer in the universe aligning things for us exactly as it should be so that we can be poised for what's next for us, whether we even know it or not. So the universe put me in front of several different entrepreneurs who said that they wanted to pick my brain about marketing and PR, about one of their small businesses. And I went and did so. And one of the people that I met with said, you should start your own marketing consulting business. And I was like, what? Like I'd been through business school. And in business school, when I was a little girl, when we were in business school, and I went to school back in, late 1900s, we learned that you just climb the corporate ladder until you get to the top. And then you just probably, as a woman, you just get knocked right the hell off and you just fall down on the ground. So that's what I figured I was going to have to do. But
so this is the fun part of Meghann.
Yes. Luckily, I did start a business at that time, and I was encouraged by and supported by several entrepreneurs. I was the kind of person who I joined a leads group within 2 weeks of starting my business. I had no idea what a leads group was. Fun fact, I went on my first one-on-one and I thought it was a sales conversation. I had no idea that a one-on-one meant we were going to get to know each other. And it was like all of these things were trial by fire and learning them in the moment. And so that was wonderful. But at the time, as an entrepreneur right off the bat, I felt that that perfection, yes, this is where I'm supposed to be. Click into the bindings of the skis on the perfect powder day, bluebird skies, sunshine on your face, and going down the slope perfectly. That was the feeling of becoming an entrepreneur for me.
That's awesome. What were your fears around it? Because maybe you didn't have any.
At the time, I kind of was like, I really have nothing to lose. Now, I was unemployed, so I was on unemployment insurance at the time. So I had that as a little cushion. And I was, I do not do well not being employed. I don't do well sitting on my butt. I don't do well trying to apply for 20 jobs a day. So I was at least making some money there. And then I could start looking for clients and start kind of learning what the heck is this business thing. But luckily I have a father who's an attorney and friends who are entrepreneurs. So my dad helped me set up my business. My friends helped me get my first computer, all the things so that I could be legit pretty much right away with a website, email, etc. So fast forward, those years are kind of boring, but I call them the ramen years.
Yes, the ramen years. Yes.
Ramen years.
Ramen noodles, baby. Rice and beans, beans and rice.
Man alive. Yeah. I think my first year in business, I made $20,000. And, I was training myself, self-trained. I became a social media marketing coach right out the gates. I remember going to my first ever virtual workshop and learning all about all of these new social media tools that had come out, learned about how to market businesses on them, and just started going out and selling myself. I was charging $50 to $100 a month to manage people's Facebook accounts.
Yeah. And now hold on, one thing about that.
Yeah.
And Marden, I'd love to get your take on this. Is when I started, not Pacific Perks, but a little design business, because people said I should. And, well, gosh, I don't want to be 50 and not have done this. So you charge nothing because it's just a little less pressure.
Well, and I had no idea how to price myself. None whatsoever. There's nobody doing what I was doing.
See, that's a big piece of people starting up. Everybody gets all banged out of shape about the pricing. I've had clients, people who are really trying to figure out how to do it, that even throw at you words like price integrity. And I'm like, nobody cares. Nobody knows you. So price integrity is not a question. Nike can have price integrity. Coca-Cola can have price integrity. You're just testing things out. Every conversation is a new sales pitch where you can basically test out your pricing levels.
And your clients. We do that too. We take in whoever, right? And then we kind of build a little bit of confidence and we go, okay, I'm not doing that anymore.
And
Yep.
at some point, that also becomes a measure of success, right? Once you start choosing your clients, and you don't have to work with everybody.
Another
Yep.
tweetable moment.
That's
Yep,
when,
that's like the first milestone that you achieve where you're like, I don't work with anyone that has a pulse.
yep.
You know, I remember it's always been a passion of mine to help people niche in farther and farther and farther, because I just remember how powerful that was, empowering that was for me to say at an early stage, you know, I work with professional service providers, B2B professional service providers, and then get even more niched in and say women based, you know, women owned, and then get even more niched in and say women owned above 500,000 going to the $1 million mark, and just continue to get more and more niched in, because that's where the riches are in the niches. And I was teaching workshops and social media workshops and all kinds of marketing workshops because I knew this stuff. But at the same time of what we were just talking about, there's also a thing that I find for women, which is knowing our worth and charging our worth is the most difficult thing. So even though I had no idea how to price myself because there was no competition, I thought this is the only way I can possibly do this, is to just charge bare minimum, because I'm not an expert. I'm not skilled. I just learned how to do this. Whereas, you know, the whole they don't check stats, at least as far as I know, on women business owners, but they do when it comes to, you know, you applying for a job. They say that women want to have like 95% of the criteria, and men will apply if they have 30. You know, it's just that same kind of thing here. Thank you, Macy. Yeah.
Yes, we love Macy.
Yeah.
And Macy is the connection to how I know you, Meghann.
Exactly.
So there we go.
Macy's the best.
Yes.
And yeah, it's been learning how to, as an entrepreneur, how to get more comfortable with my expertise, more comfortable with niching in, more comfortable with knowing my value and pricing myself and my services at my worth. And also changing money beliefs. I mean, there's so many layers here. This is an onion, right? There's so many layers that go into how do we become successful as entrepreneurs. But I don't even remember half of the things that I was struggling with when I was below 100,000, because it was so painful that I think I shut a lot of it out. But so much of it is personal growth. It's like 99.9% mindset and personal growth.
Yeah.
Well, since you're beginning to touch on that, I guess we should talk about what's your definition of success.
Yes. Okay.
Everyone's definition's different.
Yeah. And I think that my definition of success evolves at every stage, because it's all about my feeling and how I feel in my life. How aligned am I to my big picture vision? And then how much work am I doing internally from the internal part, from the inside of myself out? Because if we all hit ceilings at every so often. That point changes all the time. We can't get through those ceilings any other way than going through the eye of the needle that we're facing at that moment in time. So I'll hit a ceiling and then I'll realize, oh, here's another growth edge, or here's another needle I have to go through. And it's an uncomfortable period of time to go through those needles, but you know that the only way out is through. And when you know that, the transformation, the sloughing off of the old so that we can find room and make space for the new, beliefs have to be let go of, new beliefs have to come into place. The way that we then act as it relates to our new beliefs have to change. We're in a constant state as entrepreneurs, if we choose to, of evolution. And our success levels change with that. So in those early stages, I really did think that getting past 100,000 was when I was going to be successful, because it took me so freaking long to get there. You know, it was like 6 painful years where I'm just like, what is happening here? And I morphed my business and I had a different target audience and I had different services. And I got to a point where, okay, I figured out that creating 17 different offers and constantly have to write new proposals that are all different and, you know, creating all of these different things was never going to work. You can't possibly scale a business with that kind of customization.
Simplicity.
Yeah. So when people say, oh, I customize my offers, I'm like, don't do that. Don't do that.
Yeah.
So, you know, as a coach, as a marketing coach, I was able to get one solid offer that I had. And it was a 12-month coaching program, which included my subcontractors who would redo their website, build their free gift, do all the new copy, help them with their brand upgrade. And that was the only thing that I offered. And that was what popped me over the $100,000 mark.
Wow. Interesting.
And got me into that space of, okay, now I can actually feel real as a business owner and feel like I'm not just struggling to feed myself.
Right.
And it didn't stop there. You know, that wasn't the next, that was just the next pinnacle of my success.
Yeah. Do you ever feel like when you're going through those stages, like, okay, it'll get better when, or I just need to learn and then it'll get better at this point. My mom always says through the 15 plus years I've been in business, well, once you get that grand opening done or the 5-year anniversary or the 10, I go, Mom, I just shake my head and I laugh. So Mom, if you're listening, I love you, but welcome to the life of an entrepreneur. I mean, if you're a high achieving entrepreneur, you're always, not that I want to project always going to the next level and not being happy with where you're at, but you are moving forward all the time and you're creative and you're looking and just being a business owner, there's so much to learn. I mean, I'm going on my 16th year and it's like, I don't have it all down. I just learned, you know, a silly thing that I should have probably known the last 15 years. And sometimes you don't know what you don't know. So, yeah.
Yes. And as a business owner, you're always, what you can see is just the next base camp on the way to Everest, right? Like that's all you can see. And that's the next immediate goal. But you know that it's just a base camp. Once you get there, there's another climb and you can hang out there for a little bit because you can and be satisfied and plan out when you're going to tackle the next bit. But there is a next bit, right?
Yes.
So Marden, go ahead.
Let me just say one thing. Like when this happens, then this will happen is all an illusion. That is the biggest fucking illusion that we are all facing.
Absolutely.
The F-bomb has been dropped because we are real and I love it.
If you allow yourself to be bitten in the butt by that every single time, you will keep yourself back. You will play small. You will hold yourself back. Fear will overcome you because that is an illusion. We have to get to the point where we are present and we are happy, but not happy. We are full of joy in the present.
Content.
And yes, and our values are being lived in every day. That is success if you want. It is never a pinnacle of this is the mountaintop that I have climbed. It is how do you feel? And are you feeling in alignment with your positioning, with your end goal, with your North Star? And are you living in your values? And are you acting in those spaces in that energy all the time?
So Meghann, I love that. Of course, I'm so aligned with that. And I'd love to know from you, when did you become aligned with those thoughts and that philosophy? Because for me, when we started Pacific Perks, it was out of a dire need. We, Jim has MS and we had to do something. We were in crisis mode.
Right.
So that's where I needed flexibility and all that to start. Yep. But it wasn't until I grew as a person and a woman and a business owner where I was like, okay, I'm leaving at 3:30 and I feel good about that, to where I actually feel like, Marden, and maybe you have some input on this, but even the last 4 or 5 years, I would say I'm truly enmeshed in it. Like, oh no, don't you take my time away from me. Like, I'm going to enjoy this. I wake up in the morning and I can breathe lightly knowing that I'm not in the day to day and I get to work on the big stuff. And I've got an awesome team who's kicking butt.
And how does business go though? Is it any worse than when you were busting ass from 9 to 5?
No. And I don't know if you guys have had this experience, but sometimes my hands are too tight on the steering wheel. Like
I
I
have no
want to
idea
get
what
to
you're
that.
talking about. That never has happened to me. I'm always in perfect control, and the illusion of control is on my side. That's my sarcastic voice.
Yeah, exactly. But I noticed, I remember one time in 2009, it was January. We were slow. January is typically a slow month for us, but we were new in business. And I was stressed out. And, Jim's trying to help me manage this fear of, business and are we going to make it and all this stuff. And I got an opportunity to go to Vegas with a friend in a networking group. And she's like, I have a room, just come, whatever. And I was like, I'm going. And just me leaving town, the phone started ringing because my hands were too tight on the steering wheel, not allowing things to come in.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So Ben, can you put that up real quick, Marden, again? Ben says you have permission to want more and not be satisfied. Very true. Very true. However, staying in the present and finding joy in the present, I think is so important. So we're not always thinking our happiness is on the next rung of the ladder, for sure. Ben, love your thoughts on that as well.
Yeah. So
Meghann,
you asked a question
Yeah.
in there, Natalie, that was, basically, when did that transition happen for you? And I would say, like, so people used to ask me the question, where do you see your business in 5 to 10 years? And I hated that question.
I hate it too.
I hated it. So I would say, one of my friends, Zach Rader, taught me this. He's like, so why don't you just say celebrating the 5th year anniversary if you ask me this question? And so I started saying it, and I was like, there's so much liberation in that. But really, it wasn't until I let go, to your point, Natalie, that I let go of the steering wheel and I said, I made it my primary goal and my primary work to really get connected to my intuition. And I don't mean the feminine intuition. I don't mean the gut. I mean my higher self, my intuition that tells me everything that I need to know. And it's my truth. As soon as I took the years to unpack and be able to get to that point, that was when I was able to start meditating and visualizing and really seeing the future. So it wasn't until 2017 when I had already started having Denver Dames events. That's what we were before. And we had success there. But it wasn't until 2017 that I was sitting in meditation and had a full-blown download and visualization of what the Dames needed to be rebranded to and what it was going to look like with millions of women around the world. So that was the first door that opened for me to see, aha, my future is not in marketing. My future is with this women's organization. So
nice.
Then I had to get comfortable. It was almost like, these are my big girl pants and I'm going to have to fit into them. And so
I got there.
Yeah.
No,
I had
literally,
to step,
no.
Yeah. I had to step into them and really get to that point where I was going to allow myself, Macy was there with me the whole entire time, that I had to allow myself that it could be easy, that I could charge money for doing my genius, which is connecting people, and that I could really achieve what my big mission is, which is to get more women to the 7-figure mark faster and with more ease, joy, and flow by letting go of what I thought I had to do, which was marketing and helping people that way, and embracing my true talent in the Dames.
Yes, that is great. And not to go on a tangent, a different tangent, but I'm at this graduation and I'm talking to kids and parents and getting both of their views. And I just want high school graduates, college graduates to hear what you just said. It's like sometimes you have to release the idea that someone else has on you or you have on yourself to find your true joy. Because if you become a lawyer because your dad is and you hate it, you're not going to be happy. You're going to hate it. You're going to hate your life. And don't waste time, do what you want to do. And that is success.
Yes. And along those lines, Meghann, we're of a generation where we were brought up by boomers. that were all about you need a job and you need that security and school
Yep.
is everything, and if you don't go to school you're a bum. And all of us had one version or another of a career.
Mhm.
In what we do now either fully differs from that or just uses pieces, but it's not the thing, right?
Mhm.
Mhm.
And I feel like that is one of those pieces that really impacts people's fear of entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
We're like, oh, I'm
Mhm.
not going to be doing my thing that I went to school for. Or if I can't, what is that going to be like? And then you talked about belief shifting and stuff like that. And I feel like that in the business world, that is also almost looked down upon,
Mhm.
like soft skills, or there's actually called soft skills, and
Mhm.
and it's looked upon as fluff.
Mhm.
How do you overcome that when talking
Mhm.
to people, so that for them to understand that it is important how you think about
Oh,
yourself,
you want to
what you're
go
doing?
there? This
I
is where I get excited, Marden. Yes.
Let's go there. I
And
love the word fluff.
yeah, I just wanted to say, Macy said it is like, and I agree, it's a difference between having striving energy or having trusting energy. And trusting in ourselves, trusting in that path that we're on, trusting in that higher awareness that we have is that energy that
Mhm.
carries us through. But that is
Mhm.
where the self love work comes in, and self love is at
Mhm.
the core of all of this.
I
So,
love that.
couple
Trusting
of
energy.
yeah. So a
Tweetable
couple of
moment.
totally couple of things here. Like it's my belief, and I teach this in the DAMs all the time, that we can only grow as much professionally as we are willing to grow personally. We will
Love
always
it.
we will never be able to outgrow our personal growth ever. And I watch women burn and crash all the time when they don't embrace this. When they say, I'm done going through eyes of needles. No more eyes. There's no more layers. I refuse to go through this again. Watch out, because that's when you're ignoring the spiritual taps on your shoulder, and you're going to get a spiritual 2x4. You're going to get sick, you're going to get in an accident, you're going to get something else, and then you're going to be like, how the hell did that happen? It's because you're ignoring the taps from your intuition. So, but that's not answering Martin's question. So in my belief, women, okay, let's go to some stats first. 2% of women-owned businesses get past 7 figures. Depending on the state you're in the US, 10 to 15% of women-owned businesses get past 100,000 in revenue. A vast majority, around 87% nationwide, of women-owned businesses never make it past 50,000 in revenue. Hobby status businesses, that's where they stay. We cannot change the paradigm of business as women with these stats. We can't. We cannot achieve our epic missions. Women have missions that, and I'm not saying we're the only gender, I'm not saying that at all, but women have missions that are usually very attached to our communities, the world, the planet. We have missions that are
Purpose.
integrally tied to these things. And it kills us when we are not achieving our epic missions. It slowly eats away at us. So we as women have hundreds of years of masculine energy to follow it in the footsteps of. Most business books are written by men. Most of the teachings that we are all still living by are from men in masculine energy. Again, nothing wrong with this. That is not what I'm saying. But women are physiologically very different. Our energy is different. From a scientific perspective, men, their bodies, what is the word? They
Cycle.
they cycle, thank you,
Yeah.
on a 24-hour period. Women's, a 28-day period. We are literally not composed the same. So if we as women are trying to grow our businesses the way that men have, which oftentimes tends to be warrior up, push through, hustle, grind, move, that is their energy because they can do it in spurts of 24-hour periods. We cannot do that. So women are trying to grow our businesses in the way that men have been doing because it's all we know. So I think we're in the middle of a major paradigm shift. And the dames and myself, we're at the forefront of it, saying we are pioneers, we are passion pioneers, we are mission impact pioneers, having to change the way that business is being done. And we're inventing things as we're going along here. So the whole comment you made a little bit earlier, Natalie, about like the second that we realize as women business owners that we need more space, we need more time, we need more rest. The hustle and grind culture is dead. We've got to give ourselves more rest time than work time, and to know thyself and to really study ourselves, know your human design, know your Enneagram, know your Myers-Briggs, know all of these things so that you can function and be successful at your own level, because that can never be compared to another human ever.
Yes. And I absolutely,
I'm very Italian today.
Let's go to
Italian
Italy.
is coming out.
Let's do it. Let's do it. I absolutely love that, because I fought who I was forever. Marden's heard this and seen this in the evolution, but I was like, half of me was type A warrior, and the other half of me needed just absolute downtime. But I got a badge of courage when I was the warrior, right? And
because
going.
society is that way.
Society is that way,
yeah,
right?
That's
and you've got that Zen yoga versus let's go kill it type of thing,
right?
And it took me years of fighting that until I realized and got some advice that you need the downtime so you can do this. And when we were talking offline last week, you said there are weeks of the month where I can only do 5 hours a day. And I was just like, oh, thank God she said that, because I can so relate to that. And it looks so different for me. And I've been comparing myself to people forever that are like, oh my gosh, I was working till 7. And I'm like, shit, I don't ever want to work till 7 ever. And just finally, and I don't know if it's, just working on myself. I'm sure it's a lot of stuff, working on myself, becoming, my 40s. Now I'm 51, and just finally embracing that. There's just such a weight off and such a joy to just accept who you are and live that recipe. And that recipe is incredible. And you get that as an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
So thank you. Yeah.
Now here's the thing though. I also don't know any man who could not benefit from that same advice.
Thank you, Marden. That is, thank you.
A big part of what I do with business owners is having them understand this sense of, first of all, the business is going to always be a reflection of who you are as a person.
Right.
So if you think you need to be a hard ass asshole to be a business owner, you may, right? There's plenty of oil companies out there, and they're just going to match. Right? They're going to be a hard ass asshole company,
right?
And very few people are going to enjoy that. Right? Everybody talks about they need some level of satisfaction around what they do, and I mean, it may look cool, but it's not going to be enjoyable,
and it's not sustainable. No, it is not sustainable. I remember people going, oh yeah, you've got your own business, you must work 60 hours a week. And I was like, now I'm like, actually I don't, but you feel like you have to say you do. And maybe that's why it's taken me, 15 years to be a 7-figure woman, whatever, or business owner, a woman.
Yeah.
But you know what I say? Well, here I am. It's like 15 years, little by little, finally got there. And it's just like, why do we do that? But I love Candace's comment here.
Yeah. And think about the number of times that you realize you're a 7-figure woman, 7-figure entrepreneur, and immediately dismiss it.
Exactly.
We
could do a whole podcast.
Immediately dismiss it, or immediately criticize how long it took,
or how long it took, or
compare yourself to somebody else, or
Yeah,
or I mean, it helped. Have to go.
Yeah, it helped me hearing, Meghann, that it took you, 6 years to get over that 100,000. It's just it's a marathon, not a race. It is your own journey. It is your own journey.
And
You know,
and your thoughts are not facts.
right,
yes,
exactly. And neither are your
yes.
feelings.
Definitely
Ooh,
not.
ooh,
So
yeah.
it's all clouds in the sky. They come and they go. But
Mhm,
you know, something that is like a concrete logical side of things, when you were asking Natalie earlier, when did I realize that that transition happening, was also when I embraced a different business model, because I realized that
mhm,
as an entrepreneur, my
mhm,
forte and the way that I was going to achieve my epic mission was
mhm,
not through coaching.
mhm.
I
Did you
still
have
get
to
to
mourn
coach.
that at all? Did you have to
Oh
mourn
yeah.
that at all?
Oh
Yeah,
yeah. Oh
yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
It's okay to mourn it.
Yeah, Macy would tell you
Yes.
that I spent many days crying and saying, how am I possibly, because I saw so much transformation in my clients, and I got so much like joy, but I also worked 20 hours more a week as a
Mhm,
coach. I had 20 hours more of follow-up work to do. I was
mhm,
not as efficient. It was not
mhm,
for my system, for my
mhm,
body type, for my human design, for all of these things, for a lot of different reasons. That was not my business model. And
mhm.
so I was able to, like, okay, so I was able to grow my marketing business to 6 figures in 6 years. I was able to grow the dames there in less than 18 months. So as
Awesome.
soon as that business model shift,
Mhm,
I allowed it, and I was gave
mhm.
myself the permission to let go of my marketing business, which was, by the way, 12/31/2019. Let
Who
go
could
of it,
forget?
jumped into Dames full time for the first time January 1st, 2020, and pandemic hit. But I had listened to my intuition all the way along, and I had built our online virtual membership in 2017,
Nice.
when I myself was like, a virtual membership? Why am I doing this? Who's going to want to do virtual networking? Nope, you got to trust it. Listen to your intuition. Okay, I did it.
Wow,
And what do you
Meghann.
know? Lo and behold, 2020, we
Wow.
3x'd.
Maybe you could
2021,
do a
2x'd.
reading for
So
me.
how do you personally differentiate from what you just called intuition
Mhm.
and those sort of like self-minimizing thoughts that everybody has? They
How do
they
I
both
identify the difference?
Yeah, they both occur as thoughts. We just said that thoughts are not facts. So how do you differentiate that? How do you know which
I
one to
disagree
follow?
with them being thoughts,
Okay, tell me more.
because intuition communicates to us all in very different ways. There are
Mm.
typically 5 or 6 different ways that people get communicated to by their intuition. I'm not the expert in this. Shoshana French, a good friend of mine, is simplespirit.com. She has a blueprint test there where you can figure out how your intuition communicates to you. But for me, it's a knowing. It's an instant knowing. It's a feeling in my body. I feel it in my chest. I don't It's not a thought that's bouncing around with all these other things. It's an instant knowing. And
Does it feel like a clearing? Like, whew.
yes, it is almost like a empty shaft inside of my body from my head to my feet that is clear, and information just comes right in, and I have instant knowings. So I'm able to channel when I'm coaching. This was part of my secret sauce when I was coaching. When I'm facilitating calls through the dames, everything is pouring through me. And that's part of my intuition just coming through. And I say things and people are like, repeat that. Nope. You got to play the
Can't do it.
recording back. I have no idea what just came through me. So, but there are people who see pictures, and that's their intuition. There are people who actually hear messages. There are people
Mhm,
who sense it in other ways. And again, I'm not the
mhm,
expert, but so
mhm,
I've worked for years to distinguish what is a thought and what is my
mhm,
intuition, and I know the
mhm,
difference very clearly. Now, there are certain things that I have done to help clear out that pathway. I used to drink. I quit drinking almost 6 years ago because it was dulling my intuition and it was not getting me to where I wanted to go. I can tell you that alcohol not once did me a favor. It might have
mhm,
loosened me up, but it never has paid me money. It never has helped me sleep better. It's never made me a better person or a better business owner. So there are
mhm,
things that I've chosen to remove from my life that were coping mechanisms or
mhm,
habits that have made it easier for me to get that communication. but I don't. I can very clearly distinguish between thoughts, feelings, intuition.
Now, sometimes I have a reaction to things where I'm like, damn it, I got to go do that.
Oh, yes.
Like,
That's it.
like-
By no means does intuition mean that it's easy, that it makes sense,
right,
that it seems
right,
like it's even
right,
feasible.
right.
And a lot of times you have to ask your intuition, okay, what's my first step? Because how the hell am I going to build a multinational, billion-dollar business? Where do I start?
Do you have your own business coach? Sorry to cut you off. Do you
Not-
feel like as a business owner that it's important for you to have your own coach? Like I feel like a therapist, it's really important for them to have their own therapist.
I hire specialists to help me in the areas where I don't have as much knowledge. So
Which is very important.
I hire, I have a business manager who helps me with finance and really budgeting, forecasting, looking at the numbers, looking at the KPIs on a regular basis. And for the last 6, maybe it's been like almost 8 months, I've been working with an operations outsourced COO who's been training my in-house COO to become our COO. So I hire specialists to help me in those areas. And then I do personal development and spiritual development. So I work with healers and spiritual mentors for myself, because as long as I keep that pathway clear, I'm my own best guide.
Absolutely.
The rescuable part of all of that for sure is that you need a team.
Yes.
You need people outside. Right?
Oh,
you
yes.
need to pull from people
Whoever
that you
is.
know more or different things than you. And along the lines of what Candace is saying there is what I meant. It was a directed question, right? With the intuition versus thought, because if you don't know, right, if you don't even know that those two things exist separately, they all occur as thoughts, right? They all occur as your authorship. And one of the things I teach people to do is to listen in a particular way, right? You can listen. So if that thought sounds like somebody you know, it's usually a thought. It's usually a criticism, right?
Yeah.
So it may sound like your parents. It may sound like your first teacher who didn't give a shit about you. It may sound that way. And it's usually a criticism. It's usually a takedown. It's usually something that doesn't produce anything or gives you anything. And
it creates fear.
Well, it's interesting though with the fear thing, because for me, as Meghann was talking, I remember that I have this physical sensation, like something doesn't make me want to throw up, I don't think it's worth doing.
Interesting.
Right? Like I feel like if it's big enough, it's going to make me feel it. And if it's not, it's going to occur like a thing to do. It's going to be.
So that's the body. You get intuition messages through your body.
Sure. Yeah, exactly. And that's something to listen for, right? Like my thoughts are usually, there's no way you can sell that. There's no way you can do that. There's no way somebody will listen to you.
Yeah.
And they're very directed and they're very poignant and very petty. And that's not the feeling when something is big enough, right? That's not the feeling.
Yeah. And part of my journey and the continuous personal growth and development that I'm doing has taught me, I've learned about IFS, internal family systems. And by far, that has been the most helpful for me to understand the thoughts, because we have different parts that make up our psyche that we've created over time since we were kids, before we had the ability to cognitively do anything else. So we created these protectors and therefore exiles in our system that we can even identify. Some of our thoughts have different personalities. They have different ways of talking to us. They have different messages for us. And once we can realize, that's a protector part, and then have conversation with it to access our true adult aligned self, we can actually make different choices to distinguish our thoughts from who we really are.
And so you have the gift or not the gift, you've done the work to get to the point where you can know the difference between the two, thoughts and intuition.
Correct.
And so this is wonderful, because this is where, if we're not there, everyone listening, that's a first step.
Oh, yes.
is really being self-aware and digging into that. And Ben, that's why it's so important to surround yourself with like-minded
I don't want to
individuals.
step over Ben's comment here because
Yeah.
this is something I tell people to listen to cautiously, right? So, yes,
Okay.
you want to surround yourself with
I agree
like-minded
with you,
individuals
Marty.
if the outcomes you're producing are the outcomes you want, right? If you're
Mm.
producing crappy outcomes and then the individuals you're surrounding yourself may be like-minded, but they're not helping you.
Yeah. And Ben
Yeah,
probably, he may mean, like-minded, like what we're talking about today.
If you're
right.
growth
Yeah.
minded, then you will surround yourself with like-minded individuals.
Yeah.
Growth will happen.
Growth will happen. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and it's interesting because a couple of different things here. Someone said to me recently, and this is around the neurodivergent community, and a lot of we like valued is my preferred term, because honestly, it's like we really do gravitate toward those who share the same values as us, and
Mhm.
I can be like yeah, anyways, we don't have to get into that, but I prefer
We
the term
can.
like valued.
Like
Yes.
valued.
And
Mhm.
I also want to say that we are the sum of the 5 people that we hang out with most, and or the average, however, that's actually what Jim Rohn's original quote was.
Yes.
And we can realize at certain times that part of the evolution that we have is surrounding ourselves with different people.
Mhm. Mhm.
I'm coming out of a relationship for 11 years, and I am realizing a lot of the influence in that relationship that has made big impact on me.
Mhm.
And I am coming out of that and really letting go of more and more layers that I
Mhm.
have put on myself that weren't mine.
Mhm.
And so
Mhm.
it's really important that we are conscious of the people that we're surrounding ourselves by. And I know when I'm around my 2 best friends, I feel
Amen.
so much better.
Yeah.
And when I'm around
Yeah.
certain people, I feel so much better. And
Mhm.
so, yes, I totally agree with Ben's. I mean, this is all about choice.
Mhm.
And we have to, instead of falling
Mhm.
asleep to and just falling into old habits and patterns, that's again the choice that we get to upgrade our beliefs and upgrade our actions at all times, to say, I'm not satisfied with where I am. What do I need to change
Mhm.
about
Yeah.
myself? And then
Yeah.
if I've changed the things that I have the ability to change and it's still affecting me, then what do I need to change about the circumstances around me
Mhm.
as well?
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's huge. And thanks for sharing that as
Mm-hmm.
well. Like you and I are in a different space right now doing this podcast. We're also going through a lot of the similar stuff personally,
Mm-hmm.
which I find so interesting. And I'd love to have a whole 2 hours
Me
about
too.
that.
Whew.
Um, because I will say, and Marden noticed this in me, is I feel like I dim my light for others, especially people that are living in my house, like a spouse or a partner. And the freedom that I feel right now, like the light flowing through me, is just, it's, I just love it.
So I want to
And
pose a question, which is, how can we support each other as entrepreneurs in becoming aware of our dimming of our light sooner,
yes,
so that we can experience more
yes,
happiness and more satisfaction without having to go through so much pain? What
yes.
are some things that we can share with our audience today that help us
Mm-hmm.
recognize we are dulling our light?
Love that question.
Mm-hmm. I think for me is when you when you feel like you're continually being nitpicked, when you feel a little bit down, when you'd rather go on vacation with friends and you have a much better time than that other person, uh, that's a sign right there. Hello. Um, I also
Red
think
flag.
that what was that?
Red flag.
There's so many red flags. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
But the other thing I think of the dimming of the light for me, I think it comes a lot from me being the uplifter in people's life. So I notice in my past, I have dimmed my light in order to lift people up, which is not healthy. Don't do that. So it's really trying to recognize that difference. How you doing, Meghann?
Yeah, good.
Yeah,
Good.
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 Yeah.
This is a real, raw, engaging
Life.
podcast, damn it. And I
Yeah.
just want to thank you for being you. And
Yeah.
I think you're freaking incredible. And I want to go on vacation with you.
Yeah, that whole thing just hit me.
So
Marden, what about you?
yeah, I want to add a little to that question.
Yeah.
It's a great question, by the way. For me, there's this pattern that I noticed very early on, and human beings love to be of contribution to other people. We love it. Yeah,
Yeah.
see somebody on the side of the road. At the very least, you think about helping, right? You always
Mhm.
want to offer something. You have advice if somebody asks. You're ready to go,
Mhm.
but we are terrible at taking it. We're
Mhm.
terrible at accepting contribution.
Mhm.
We're terrible at making ourselves available for that contribution.
Mhm.
So, one thing that you can do to get support from your fellow entrepreneurs and from the people that you interact with and is make yourself available for contribution. Like,
Mhm.
talk to them about specifically and say specifically, hey, if you see me struggling, or if you see me going down the particular weird path, or if you see one of those gigantic red flags, say something.
Yeah.
It's cool. You can say something.
Do
Yeah.
we give them? And so I recently have said this exact same thing, this exact thing. I've never done it before in my life, but I'm like, please, if you see sad eyes, if you see a red flag, if you see me dimming my light, please, you have, whatever it is, please just stop me. And then we got in a discussion about this, and it was like, does that put too much pressure and stress on the other person? But I know it's 10:56 and we could go on for 3 more hours, literally.
Can I just say one quick thing that I think
Yeah.
everyone could look for, which is if you find yourself taking too much responsibility.
Oh.
If you find yourself taking the majority of the responsibility for things, or being the one who's always apologizing, or being the one who's letting go of what it is that you're wanting to do for the sake of someone
Yes.
else,
Yes.
those are the signs.
Yes.
And I agree wholeheartedly with Marden
Yes.
that it's about having that community around you. And that's, what the Dames is all about, but that's having those friends, those people, those confidence, those like valued individuals that you trust to really say, hey, I've noticed these things about me, and I really want you to be able to show me, and I trust you when you see
Mhm.
these things. And know
Mhm.
that there are
Yeah.
people that like choose the people that you do
Choose.
trust. Choose the
Yes.
people that you do trust.
Yes. Yes. 100%, Candace says.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Megan, before
So,
we go, I
yeah.
have one last question for you.
Okay.
It's a question that we're going to ask of all of our guests.
Yeah.
If you could just like magically, insert a piece of advice in people's or entrepreneurs' minds, what would that be?
When you create the space for yourself to see your big picture and where you're headed, do yourself a favor and make time to consistently sit, get quiet, and look at the path that's ahead of you. And if you see rocks or boulders, move them out of the way. You don't have to keep tripping on them. Get them the heck out of the way.
Beautiful.
Absolutely. And
Thank you.
sometimes you may need help getting those
Yes.
boulders out of the
Oh,
way.
yes.
And bring that help in,
Get the
whoever
community.
that is. Yeah. Okay, real quick. Marden, this is for you. And then we're going down the line. What are you celebrating today on this Friday? And it could be Diet Pepsi. It doesn't have to be huge.
It's definitely not Diet Pepsi. That's an entirely different religion for me. Um, it's that I don't work for anybody. I love that.
Mm,
I don't
Yeah.
think I don't think I'm fit for that.
No, I don't
mm.
think you are either, which is beautiful. All right, Meghann, what about you? What are you celebrating today?
Today, I am celebrating taking courageous, loving, self-centered steps for myself that have been difficult to take. And I'm just really freaking proud of that.
Woohoo! Woohoo! And I love that. And I'm celebrating that after this podcast, I get to focus on my daughter graduating from Boise State 2023.
Congrats.
And I know that my team back home is kicking ass
Woohoo!
without me. And
Yes.
I freaking love that.
Ditto.
Isn't
Woohoo!
this the greatest music?
It is.
Have a good weekend, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in first and third Fridays, 9 a.m. Pacific time.
See you soon.